I'm a believer that this team's going to win the national championships.
The rivalries, it's up there on top of the list, man. And if we allow them to devalue it, we lose a lot of what makes college football special. Don't let them do it. Don't let them devalue what it means to you. Joining me Friday morning, I came on here and said that I was going to come on after Ryan Day's press conference. The first time we'd heard from him in, 42 days or something. And we were going to go live and discuss everything. I thought that would be at 11 o'clock. Had no idea who else was going to talk. And then 10 o'clock rolls around. Up pops Ryan Day. So he's an hour earlier than I thought he'd be. And I grabbed my pencil and my paper, and I'm taking my notes, taking my screen grabs as I normally do. And when he's done, talks for about a half an hour, he finishes up. Then they go to the indoor, and I thought maybe we would get a couple of assistant coaches. Every single assistant coach was lined up throughout the whole place, and we were getting 15 minutes from each assistant coach. Now, I don't know how this slipped by me. I don't know if this was planned in advance and maybe I just missed it. I probably did, but now there's a bombardment of information. I got to review everything before I can come on and talk. So I didn't have enough time to end up going live. At any rate, I have got to get out. We're going to do our live weekend show, but I want to talk about Matt Patricia. Matt Patricia, the lightning rod hire of this bunch, a hire that's a lot of people were very irritated about. More than half of Ohio State fans in every single poll that I saw weren't happy about this. And I just kind of want to go through what happened today, what Ryan Day had to say about him, what he had to say, because I think it's pretty fascinating and I think it's really good news. So it starts obviously with Ryan Day being asked about the hire and why he made the hire, why he thinks Matt Patricia translates to college after being an NFL head coach for all these years, coached last at Syracuse for maybe a year or two in the early 2000s. And for starters, he goes on about his rings, 6 Super Bowl appearances, and the instant credibility that lends, all the experience in the NFL. And what makes him feel good about his shift to college is he thinks there is a lot of trickle down and trickle up going on between the NFL and college, meaning that they're so much more similar these days than they used to be, with quarterbacks now running in the NFL like they have in college forever, college teams huddling like his team did last year, and just a whole lot of similarities. But when discussing the defense, what he really wanted to keep was consistency in the defense, and he wants to be more multiple. These are things that Matt Patricia has the ability to do. Another thing that was very important to him is he didn't want to bring in a coach who insisted on, I need my guys. And generally, when you hire a defensive coordinator from someone else, he wants to bring, some of his fellas, guys that know his system. Matt Patricia doesn't have his guys. So Matt Patricia can come into the situation at Ohio State where the guys you currently have, who are good dudes, who, by the way, he happens to know Tim Walton very well. He happens to know Larry Johnson very well. These guys are now his guys. And that was very appealing to the whole thing, too. As far as keeping the defense consistent, Ryan Day said he has been studying Nick Saban's run. And in Nick Saban's run, he kept the offense changing with different coordinators all the time, with Lane Kiffin, with Steve Sarkisian, and Mike Loxley, Bill O'Brien. But the defense was always the same. The defense remained intact, and that's what Ryan Day wants to do. He wants to do the same thing. Now, I think it's cool that he's studying how Saban went about his run, being that he just won a national championship. It gets me pretty excited. However, when I'm looking at this from the Saban Day kind of thing, like, Saban did that because that was Saban's defense. That's why he always kept that defense the same. And in this situation with Ryan Day, I would think that would be the offense that would always stay the same because it's Day's offense. Regardless, I like the defense staying the same, particularly with a young defense. And, Matt Patricia has the ability to do that. Now, Patricia is a guy who looks to utilize talent first in the best way possible. And to me, I think that is very important when you have a place like Ohio State that gets really highly talented players. And I'll talk a little bit about that more in a second here. But they said that he adds instant credibility the minute he walks into the room with all the guys. And when we listen to Matt Patricia talk, I think that it caught a lot of people by surprise. A lot of people were expecting that burly, bearded, out of shape kind of curmudgeon that you saw in Detroit. And if you were someone who was against this hire, and I know a lot of you were, I would just encourage that you watch that 15 minutes of this guy talk, because if you have that guy in your head from Detroit or from seeing him on TV on the sidelines in New England, I would really encourage that you watch this. And I'll play a little clip here for you in a second. But what I saw here was self-awareness. He clearly wanted to impress in his introduction press conference. He brought all the energy. He brought all the eye contact. He was friendly. He brought up family. It's clear that he knows his reputation, and he's smart enough and self-aware enough to know that he's fighting an uphill battle in public perception. He's heard people aren't happy about this hire, and he said all the right things, but man, it sure felt sincere. He said it feels like a family atmosphere at Ohio State, which is all we've ever heard there. Looking at the landscape of football last year with the year off, which, one of the criticisms was, yeah, he had the year off because nobody wanted him. But whatever it was, he sat, looked at the landscape, and decided where he wanted to go. Now, you and I ultimately know this guy wants to go to the NFL, right? And that, similar to those Saban hires, right? This hire of Patricia almost felt like the Saban reform school that we used to joke about. He would take a very talented coach who was down on their luck and give them an opportunity to catapult themselves back into where they wanted to be, which oftentimes for those guys was a college head coaching job. But in some cases, like Bill O'Brien, it was an NFL job. In this case right here, we know Patricia wants to be back in the NFL. At least we assume so. And that's fine. What we're looking for is a couple of good years out of him. In regards to recruiting, some people were concerned about this. How's he going to recruit being out of college so long and having that personality? Again, that Detroit personality is what's on people's mind. Let's listen to what Patricia has to say about recruiting.
And having to go into that next step. And look, for obviously the guys that are coming here that want to go to the NFL, if that's their goal, that's certainly something I can help them with. I've had a lot of jobs in the NFL and both sides of the ball, and front office roles and head coach roles and all coordinator roles. So I know what's required for that. I know what's needed for that. So just being able to talk to the kids and the parents, I know that's like a long-term sort of vision, but that's what they want to do after they get done here. So I can help them with that. So that's all been it's been fun. It's the hardest thing for me right now is just, I'm trying to, the areas and, the bigger schools. And obviously, look, there's nothing better than Ohio high school football. I mean, this is like, I know that from even being in the NFL, like just where all the good players are coming from.
Oh, you hear that last part? There's nothing better than Ohio high school football. I mean, I know that just from being in the NFL where all the good players are coming from. Again, this is a smart dude. This is a guy who knows what to say. He knows how to get us. He knows how to get a lot of us anyway. But when we talk about recruiting, there is no doubt about it that guy with that personality and that NFL track record, automatically better than Jim Knowles, who didn't recruit a lick. So we can wipe that concern off the board. That's definitely a clear upgrade. You can clearly see it. But when we talk about the Julian Edelman podcast was brought up, and in that podcast, he talked about being extremely flexible, scheme flexible. And he was asked, if you are so scheme flexible, what is the overarching principle that guides you as a defensive coordinator? And he gave some backstory. When he first came in to New England, they were running a 3-4. But as the game changed and as they changed as a team, i.e. started winning a lot, they were picking late in the draft. And being that they were picking late in the draft, it was becoming difficult for them to get the players that they wanted to fit their scheme. So they decided, let's just start to get the best players and work our scheme around those best players. And his goal now, as his overarching philosophy, is to try to figure out how he gets players put in the best position to make plays, to play fast and aggressive, because they know their skill set and they're ready to roll and they feel confident in what they're doing. He says, I've coached it all. That doesn't really matter. To me, it's, can I get that guy so he can do this? And then that creates roles for people. So it's not always the same 11 guys. And guys, I love this for so many reasons, but one in particular, it takes time for players to master a position to become a starter. And when you've got a coach who is focusing on what he's going to focus on and who's good at it, which he is, just a random example, let's take freshman Jarquez Carter. He will not be anywhere near ready to start at 3 Tech at Ohio State. But he has a really unique skill set when it comes to rushing the passer from the 3 Tech. He is twitchy and explosive, freakishly strong, would have been second on the Ohio State roster on the 225-pound bench reps last year as a 17-year-old. And when you got a guy like that, well, Matt Patricia, he's going to see that. He's going to identify that skill set. And now he's got a kid that can come in and be a disruptive pass rusher at the 3 Tech while he's learning to master everything else. Riley Pettijohn, superstar linebacker coming in as a true freshman, an incredibly gifted athlete, maybe the most gifted athlete in the linebacker room already as a freshman. There's going to be something that he does better than everybody else. And Patricia's going to find him that role and get him in. Safety Fahim Delane, 6'3", 210, safety. Caleb Downs is probably going to be the best at every single thing a safety could do. But for instance, a guy like that is a guy who in a normal defense would come in and you could say, this kid ain't ready to start, but he does this better than anybody. And I can teach him how to do it even better. And that's going to be his package. And what this does is it allows for our young guys who are great at certain things, but aren't ready to come in and play big minutes to come in, do that job while they learn everything else. It inspires confidence. It ingratiates them to the older guys faster. Like this young guy's contributing. They get welcomed in like that, which is something we don't often talk about, but that takes a bit of time. Then these guys, these younger guys, they're happier. They're getting on the field. They're more invested in the team. They're more invested in the team's success. And they're entertaining fewer offers because they're not getting playing time. This is perfect. Now, a guy who's a guy who stood out to Matt Patricia that he wanted to come in and meet early on. And obviously he said Caleb Downs as fast as possible as soon as he got in the building. Then he brought up Sonny and Arvell and said, at New England, we always had bigger linebackers. These guys are just big. They move, they eat up space. And when I see him, of course, my first thought is, ooh, what can I do with him? I can put him here. I can put him here. Gosh, I just love the sound of this, man. Love the sound of this. When it comes to the staff already on board, he also worked James out for the NFL Combine when he was in the Woody. And he said his job is just going to be to sit and learn and add and adjust from these guys, and how lucky he is that he could come in and do this and be one of the guys with them. As far as Bill Belichick coming back to college, going to North Carolina, he was asked, did that have any influence on him? He said, we're close. We talk a lot. We were together every day in the off season. They were doing a podcast series together, like coach and football podcast. And they talk a lot about roster construction, which is something that really interests them. He did hit on his time in Detroit, and he hit on his time in Detroit as a head coach. And I thought that it was a real kind of an honest look. He said, there's no playbook on how to go from coordinator to head coach, and it's not easy. I learned a lot, but I wasn't the best version of myself, and I take full responsibility. That first year was really hard, and I didn't do a good job. And then he told a story that going from the Patriots, where they were in the Super Bowl one year, and then they'd lose the Super Bowl, then back to the Super Bowl. He said they were getting in like in every other thing, they were winning the Super Bowl. And the year before he went to Detroit, they had not won the Super Bowl. And he walked in, the year before he went to Detroit, they hadn't won the Super Bowl. And he walked into Detroit in year one, kind of treating that Detroit team like we didn't win the Super Bowl last year, and just had kind of a hard edge. Now, I think that hard edge comes from what we've seen every other Belichick tree guy who leaves Belichick and thinks they're Belichick, Charlie Weiss and O'Brien and McDaniels, and these guys go somewhere and they model their style after Belichick. You can't do that until you earn the respect, and you don't have the respect when you're a rookie head coach. So it never worked for any of them. But he didn't say anything about that, though I did think it was really very self-aware that that he, he just kind of came about it like that and said, essentially, I made a ton of mistakes. When we talk about this hire and we talk about recruiting, even we talk about recruiting and we talk about a coach maybe choosing to go after a guy when he's got two guys. Well, why would he go after this guy? This guy on the surface doesn't seem to have as many physical tools as that guy. You know, when I look at Ryan Day hiring Matt Patricia, one of the things that we often don't factor into this when we're looking at a resume or we're looking at a player is we don't get to sit across from these people and talk to them in the interview process. We don't get to sit across from that player and talk to that player about his goals. We don't get to see his work ethic. I've probably interviewed 500 people in my career, and sometimes, man, you just know this guy gets it. This guy gets me as the boss, and this guy is perfect for us. And when the guy in the boss's chair is someone that you trust because he's developed a track record and he's earned that trust, which in this situation, I feel Ryan Day certainly has, then I feel incredibly comfortable about most of his hires moving forward. And now, after listening to this Matt Patricia interview for 15 minutes, I not only feel even better about it than I did, and I felt good already, but I feel pumped. And again, I would say that this defense, guys, was in shambles when Knowles came in. He did an amazing job. The first year was not so good, but it got better. Second year, really good. Third year, amazing. Matt Patricia's not coming in to tear anything down. He's just trying to keep it rolling. Is it going to be as good as it was in 24? No, it's not going to be as good as it was in 24 because there will be a little bit of growing pains on his end while he gets settled in. But the majority of that will be because of the grown man factor. You've lost Jack and JT, Lathan and Tyleek and Cody Simon. These are grown men. These are 22 and 23-year-olds. And you can just see the physical difference between those guys and some of the 20-year-olds on the team that are taking their place. It's just different from 18 to 23. That's like, you're a totally different guy, man. And that's why Michigan looks so different in 23 and Penn State. They're going to look different in 25. But the dip won't be nearly as big with Patricia. And the strategy that he is employing, I just love it. I'm pumped and so excited. I really am. So, obviously, I'm not going to do 15 or 20 minutes on everything each one of these guys said, but Patricia's I thought was important to get out there. So we'll do a weekend show this weekend, but I did want to get that out on Matt Patricia. I think it's awesome. And again, I encourage you guys, if you're down on the hire, if you don't like it, as I know so many of you don't, go watch it. Just give the guy 15 minutes of your time. I think you'll come out feeling a lot better. And that'll do me for now. I appreciate you guys so much. Talk to you soon.